Hi, Mzansi. Welcome back to another episode of Farmers Inside Track. My name is Patricia Tembo, your host, and welcome to today's episode. Today, we're looking at the role of seaweed biotechnology in crop production. This episode is set to be both informative and practical as we welcome Dr. Bongo Majeke, who is the plant manager at AlKelp. Dr. Bongo Majeke, welcome to Farmers Inside Track. We are very pleased and excited to have you on today's podcast episode. Welcome to Food for Mzansi.
Thanks for having me, Patricia. It's lovely to be here to share more information about the seaweed space and how it's being exploited in South Africa to benefit farmers.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm quite excited to hear about it. I don't think it's anything we've explored into detail on Food for Mzansi's platform. Dr. Majeke, you are the plant manager at AlKelp, and I believe you're also a biochemical engineer by profession. So maybe you could give us a rundown of the work that you're doing in the space and some background information about AlKelp as well.
Like you just mentioned, you hold a chemical engineering degree from Stellenbosch, and I've been in this seaweed space now for some time, over 5 years now. So we started this company, AlKelp, quite recently. This is a biorefinery company where we're producing various products from seaweeds, including alginates, which are the carbohydrates from the seaweed itself. That's our core business. However, because, the seaweed is a natural species, it has other components that can be exploited for other applications. So we've decided to diversify our portfolio to even include products that can benefit the agricultural space.
Let's get right into the topic that we have set out to explore today, and that is seaweed biotechnology. I honestly have not heard much about how seaweed is being utilized in crop production, so I'm quite excited to hear more about it from you, Dr. Majeke. So to maybe set context and basic understanding, what is seaweed biotechnology and how would it differ to other seaweed products in the agricultural space? So maybe just what exactly is seaweed biotechnology?
So the concept is actually not new. So it's been exercised for many years now, for over 40 years by some companies. So seed biotechnology is the application of modern scientific applications or techniques to extract and characterize various bioactive compounds from the natural seaweed itself, which grows in our oceans. For example, in our case, we have a brown seaweed called the Echinopsis that grows mainly in Cape Town, or it grows in cold waters. And it allows to grow in those cold waters where its nutrients and it thrives in such conditions. So unlike the traditional way of using seaweed, where seaweed is just harvested and then applied on the soil, the biotechnological process deals with the extraction of key components in the seaweed and the standardization of those products, or let's say those components, to ensure that the performance when the product or the seaweed extract is applied, it gives the most effective and reliable results on the crops.
That is quite interesting. Is it just this particular type of seaweed that is used for crop production?
Predominantly, it's brown seaweed that's used in the agricultural space, mainly Echinopsis in South Africa. However, there are other brown seaweeds that are used in other regions, in other countries such as Ascophyllum, as well as Narin and Sadasum. So there are various types of seaweeds that can be used, but predominantly in South Africa, we use Echinopsis, which is a brown seaweed. However, recently, green and red seaweed have also gained some interest due to their unique bioactive compounds or properties. So the choice of the species that you would use depends on the desirable application that you have as a farmer and the output that you're planning to target.
As a farmer, like a farmer's perspective, of course, why would I, as a farmer, use seaweed for my crop production? What is it that makes a seaweed a viable input, for crop production?
Yeah, so seaweed contains a rich mixture of natural bioactive compounds, like I've mentioned before, such as polysaccharides, amino acids. These are very good for the soil, especially with farmers that are struggling with poor quality soil. So these seaweeds can enrich the soil structure where the farmer is going to be planting their crops. It also has what you call auxins. Auxins are basically small nutrients or compounds that are from the seaweed itself that can trigger the regulation of certain physiological functions in the plant to help the plant to be more resistant to various abiotic stresses such as heat stress, salt stress, and salinity stress. So what most farmers tend to see when they apply these products is not only the improvement in the biology in the soil that they have, but also the strength, or let's say the resilience of their crops when the crop is facing certain challenges that are due to abiotic stresses, because the root structure itself gets improved through the application of this product.
So I'm seeing it as our human nutrition, we have what we call superfoods, that looking at it in terms of crop production would increase the nutrient availability in the soil. If I'm understanding you correctly, that's quite interesting. How exactly is seaweed extracted or processed for it to be usable for crop production input?
Manufacturers have different ways of extracting this, but the whole process begins with the sustainable harvesting of the seaweed. What I mean by sustainable harvesting is that we want to make sure that where you source the seaweed, which is from the ocean, you don't damage the ecosystem where the seaweed is growing. So they will conduct what you call a sustainable harvesting. So they sort of prune the seaweed instead of just literally harvesting the seaweed from its roots. So they cut what you call the fronds, which are the leaves of the seaweed, and that gets cleaned when it gets to the processing plant to wash up all the sea life as well as salt from the seaweed. And then the extraction begins. So the extraction can be done in a gentle manner, or you can use various ways, which are harsh as well, which are also effective. But the gentle extraction process is the most ideal process because you want to sort of like preserve the integrity of these oxins as well as carbohydrates so that they are still available for the plant to use. The seaweed is then formulated and standardized and quality tested before it's shipped to the various farmers.
I'm sure you're also quite aware, like there is a lot of regulation when it comes to, anything that's being put into the soil. This is not an agrochemical. Are there any regulations that farmers need to be aware of or conscious of when they are starting to use seaweed as a form of like soil for their crop production?
Yeah, it's very important that the farmer ensures that they purchase products that are registered by the South African Agricultural Regulations Body, which is DALRAD. So I know that in South Africa, products should comply with Act 36 of 1947, where it's applicable. And it's also very important that they follow the recommendations by the formulator when they use these products.
Distinguishing this seaweed products from conventional fertilizers or biostimulants, why would a farmer decide to use or incorporate seaweed in their production as opposed to everything else that is in the market? And I suppose a follow-up question to that be, does it complement other forms of input?
So with the conventional fertilizers, the primary supply is your nutrients, which is your nitrogen, your phosphorus, and your potassium. With the seaweed, on the other hand, they work differently to those traditional ways because they have a different type of composition. So their main role is to trigger the physiological processes in a plant, improve the nutrient use efficiency of a plant, and to better equip the plant to be resistant to abiotic stresses like we've discussed before, and develop their roots even better. They can virtually benefit the farmer system from making sure that these plants are able to resist any type of abiotic stress, so to speak.
Looking at the kind of farmer who would, use a seaweed more suited to certain production systems, or is it something that a farmer across the board can use? Maybe give an idea of what kind of a farmer would benefit most from implementing seaweed.
So seaweed products have been demonstrated to benefit various types of crops, including vegetables, fruit trees, grapes, and citrus, as well as berries and potatoes. So these products can benefit small-scale farmers as well as commercial farmers who just want to improve their yields, as well as farmers who are actually struggling with poor quality soil and are also struggling with the climate, because the climate change nowadays is quite hectic. Some farmers are faced with flooding and some with drought. So any farmer that is faced with those challenges, that's where the seaweed extracts or seed biostimulants can come in.
And just out of curiosity, I know a lot of farmers, the semi-arid conditions that we have in South Africa, A huge concern is water retention in the soil. Is this something that seaweed biotechnology addresses? Maybe the water uptake, as you said, there's root development is one of the ways in which seaweed does benefit crop, but looking at water in the soil, maybe explain that.
So the only thing that the seaweed will do is to help the crop just use the water more efficiently. So it doesn't supply water to the soil, but it just helps the plant absorb the water more efficiently compared to a plant that hasn't been applied with the seaweed because of its developed rooting system.
And you already have touched on this, but maybe to just go into it a bit more with seaweed biotechnology, how exactly it would improve crop quality and yield, especially yield. Maybe making that link between the improvements that seaweed has on, the soil mechanisms and how that translates into crop quality and yield.
Okay, so the composition of the seaweed, like we mentioned before, it has these carbohydrates and proteins. So by applying the seaweed into your soil, it now stimulates the microorganisms that are in there, which are beneficial for the plant, first of all. Also, because the seaweed has these auxins, auxins are small molecules that are just assimilated through the stomata of the plant. They trigger certain physiological pathways within the plant that we might not see with your physical eye, but they help the plant trigger certain pathways in their system to actually grow in a manner that when the seaweed is absent, you would see clear differences. So we have seen this seaweed products improving the yields in terms of biomass as well, and a wide range of crops. We've seen it improving the color of tomatoes, making them reach their maturation stage quite quickly, and also improve the shelf life of the product, or let's say the whatever harvest that the farmer has in the end.
I'm thinking, can I consider it as organic matter that is being put into the soil, which we know, of course, is incredibly important to have productive soil? Just looking at it in that sense that you are increasing the organic matter in the soil.
Yes, you can consider it as an organic matter because of how it's applied. So let me just backtrack. Products are quite versatile. We do have liquid types of seaweed extracts. These can be foliar sprayed to the plant, which can be beneficial in certain instances. And they can also be drenched into the soil. So they're quite versatile in how you can actually exploit their benefits. But the most appropriate method depends on the crop and the production system that the farmer has and the desired outcome that the farmer wants to have.
How seaweed biotechnology is typically applied. What is a farmer looking for in market? Is it like foliar sprays? Is it something that's applied through fertigation methods? Maybe talk us through the different ways that seaweed biotechnology can be applied.
These products can be used as seed treatments, firstly. That's how they can be applied. They can be dipped into the roots or foliar sprayed, or even through fertigation and soil drenching. So the most appropriate method, again, it just stems from what the farmer actually wants to achieve in the end and what challenges the farmer is seeing prior to planting or during the planting season of that particular crop.
And of course, I would say wise farmer does research before applying anything to their production. So what are the considerations that a farmer should have when incorporating seaweed biotechnology? Maybe if there are shortfalls, that a farmer should be aware of as well.
I think the most important thing is to just ensure that the farmer sources the product from a reputable supplier that validates their findings through running of trials, because there are many seaweed companies in South Africa, first of all. So some people make different claims when it comes to this. So it's important that the farmer, before they purchase this product, they ensure that it's scientifically validated to back up the claims that the farmer has, or let's say the supplier has on that particular product. And application, timing, and dosage and compatibility, as well as inputs, all influence the performance of the product in the end.
Looking at maybe smaller scale farmers with less input capital for these sort of inputs, how accessible is seaweed biotechnology? Is it something that a small scale farmer can find to be affordable, or is it something targeted more to commercial operations? Maybe give us an idea of what accessibility looks like.
I would say it's quite accessible, especially if you source the product from a local supplier. So we have different suppliers in South Africa, And farmers can actually source these products through retailers, as well as distributors and other cooperatives. In our company, you can also source this directly from us, and pricing varies depending on the formulation and the concentration of the product itself. But I would say that the benefit that you get from applying the product is quite enormous compared to not having the product in your regimen when you're producing for a small scale production or even a commercial scale.
So it does sound that it is a product or that is accessible from a financial perspective to really farmers across the board. Is it necessary for a farmer to seek technical support or advice when using seaweed biotechnology? Do they need to bring in an agronomist? Do they need to do soil tests before applying it? What's considerations in that sense? Or what sort of support should a farmer seek in making sure they're utilizing seaweed biotechnology correctly?
I'd recommend that the farmers seek support. The companies that formulate these products normally have a team of agronomists that are there to support the farmers with the application of the product. Yes, doing soil tests to know exactly what is your soil structure and the unknowns that you have properly laid out before applying the product would be the way to go.
If there is anything that you feel is important that you haven't spoken about or touched on, please do share.
With the rise in cases of climate change and farmers seeing less and less yields on their crops because of that, being affected by biotic stresses, the avenue of using seed-based biotechnology is actually one that should be considered by the farmers to ensure that they don't lose out on their yields in the end. And I think this is a well-known industry, and it's just a matter of awareness. And we at AlKelp are here to spread that awareness as well.
And for farmers who are listening, who are interested in knowing more about seaweed technology that is, available and knowing more about AlKelp, how can they contact or reach you?
They can visit our website, which is alkelp.co.za, or just contact me directly using my cell phone number. We're still setting up our plant. In the next couple of months, they should be able to just walk into the office and have a word with us.
Awesome. And where are you based?
We are based in Cape Town, Saldanha Bay.
Thank you so much to Dr. Bongo Majeke, plant manager at AlKelp. For more information on this topic, you can definitely visit www.foodformzansi.co.za. That brings us to the end of this episode. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. That's it from myself, Patricia Tembo, our technical producer, Megan van der Vent, and the rest of #team Food for Mzansi. Thank you for listening and keep growing with us.